Hi guys, welcome to Multiverse. Today we are going to take a look at our friend, the Punisher. Not sure why I had the idea to make this character, and strangely enough, one of you guys asked, just as I was prepping my armories, one of you asked if I could make the Punisher, so here we are. So this is pretty darn close to the classic version of the character. Obviously it's not exactly it, like the skull should be bigger and should go all the way to the belt. The belt should have some sort of magazines in the front that create sort of the teeth of the skull. But within the context of DC Universe Online, this is pretty darn close to our friend the Punisher as we can come. At least the original version. I'm going to show you a few extra versions in just a second. Basically, I'm just using I'm using the Stalwart Defender chest to get a bigger skull on the chest piece. I'm using the retro pants, but any number of slimline pants could do the trick. And the same for the chest. Any slimline could do the trick. You don't have to use the Stalwart Defender, but you will have a smaller emblem if you don't use the Stalwart Defender. For the boots, I'm using the nuclear boots, but there's a handful of boots that could do the trick. The gloves are the Ironut gloves. Again, there's a whole bunch of gloves you could use. You don't have to use those. And the belt, it's the simple utility belt. Technically, you can pretty much recreate this look at the character creation. One of the exceptions, though, is that I'm using the opalescent material for everything that's white. But you don't have to. You can just put the item white. It doesn't quite give the same white. Basically, by using the opalescent material, I'm just making sure that everything is the same white, if it makes any sense. Otherwise, the shade of white for the belt could be a bit different from the gloves and could be a bit different from the boots. It happens. One addition I would be tempted to use is the Gotham Outlaw back piece. As you can see, it gives a whole bunch of guns to our friend the Punisher. I guess I could use also the Abyssal belt, but the Punisher didn't really have guns at his belt as far as I remember. But having the guns in his back is a nice compromise. The Vengeful Surgeon from our friend Hush could be also an alternative. But the thing is, with the Vengeful Surgeon, you have to be a villain character to be able to get it at first. Of course, once you get it when you're a villain character, you can use replay badges to buy it with your other characters. But the Gotham Outlaw back piece, the Red Hood back piece, is a back piece that everyone can purchase. If you're a hero or villain, eventually you can purchase this back piece, although you have to be combat rating 150 something in order to be able to buy it, but everyone can purchase it eventually. Although, if you do want to recreate a flying Punisher, then the Gadgeteer back piece would do the trick well enough. There's a handful of back piece you could use. I guess you could use the Dark Spectre back piece. There's the Joker back piece from the vault that you could use if you're lucky enough to get it. But the Gadgeteer back piece seemed to be the better option in my book, if you want to have a flying Punisher. We're going to take a look at other Punisher looks in just a minute, but before, let's look at the weapons you can use with our friend the Punisher, and for that I will use the Vault just because. The weapon I would be tempted to use is the dual pistols. It's a weapon that has a lot of combos that you can use, but the best part also is the auto fire feature. It's awesome to do the vault. I usually try to have at least one armory that uses dual pistols so that I can do the vault pretty quickly. But of course, using a rifle is a viable option for our friend the Punisher. And if you use weapon masteries, you could use both. You could use the rifle, and you could use the weapon masteries to switch to dual pistols. So if you've been using the rifle in the Metropolis Doomed map, the Metropolis map where we have to fight the evil Doomsday, then you already know the combos. Well, you probably already know the combos to be able to switch to rifle, from rifle to dual pistols. But I will probably make a weapon mastery video at some point. I'm not sure if I'm going to use our friend Frank. So I'm probably going to make a weapon mastery video at some point. But basically, you just you hold the triangle, you roll, then you hold the triangle again. It's that simple. You hold the triangle, you go back, and you hold the triangle again. I was a little too close, so let's try again. You hold the triangle, and you hold it again. So it's hold, roll, and hold. And the same for the back. You hold, you roll back. Oh, I messed up. You hold, you roll back, and you hold the triangle again. So basically those combos are all done with the triangle, depending on where you move your sticks when you hold the triangle. So this would be a nice option to recreate our friend the Punisher. You could use rifles and dual pistols if you use weapon masteries. If not, you could simply just use dual pistols. I love going full auto with the dual pistols. The Punisher pretty much kept his big white skull through the years, although he did went through a few costume redesign. I guess someone thought that white gloves and white boots looked a little silly with that character, so they did try to modernize the look at least a few times. In the late 80s, ironically enough, Jim Lee was the penciler on the Punisher War Journal series, and they did, during his run, they did try to modernize the look of the character a bit. The first thing they did was to add some sort of trench coat, I guess so that he could sort of try to hide his Punisher insignia when he was in public. But also in the late 80s, early 90s, the trench coat became the new cape at the time. So whenever they were creating a new quote-unquote superhero character, if they were too, I guess, embarrassed to put him in a cape, they would put him in a trench coat. And then as time went by, they made other subtle changes, like not making the gloves and the boots white anymore. But the look of the character would change. He didn't have a consistent look. Like the look would change from time to time. Sometimes they would have the trench coat, sometimes not. Sometimes they would come back with the white gloves and boots. Sometimes not. I guess depending on who the creative team was on the Punisher series, they would make slight changes depending on their aesthetic taste, I suppose. For the trench coat, I'm using the Gunslinger trench coat. Sadly, as you can see, the one drawback is that you don't have a belt when you're using that trench coat, so there's no way to be able to get the white belt that the Punisher sometimes had. And then, sadly, at some point, what had to happen happened. They pretty much ran out of ideas on what to do with the character, and they decided to kill the character. It's sad, but that happens, sadly, more often than not. Sometimes when creators don't know what to do with the character anymore, they figure that, oh well, the character is done for and there's nothing left we can do with it, and they decide to kill it. So they did that to our poor friend Frank. But strangely enough, in the late 90s, like 98 I think, they brought him back in a new miniseries under the banner Marvel Knights, and they brought him back as some sort of obviously, since he was dead, they had to find some arcane way to bring him back. So they brought him back as some sort of angel of death or something like that. I think I read the first issue and I didn't read that series, so it's all vague in my memory. Although they made him some sort of angel of death with everything but the wings. At that point, I thought, since they went in that direction, why not go all the way? So I've made him a literal angel of death by giving him the glitter wings. But you don't have to. Also, they gave him some sort of weird magical guns that were supposed to be guns from heavens, or magical guns that he could conjure or something. Again, I didn't really read that series, so I'm not exactly sure what they did. But this is pretty close. Basically, they went back to the Punisher with a trench coat motif. Somehow they didn't give him gloves anymore. I guess they thought he didn't need it. And again, they should have probably given him wings. If you want to create a flying Punisher, I guess this would be a good option. And if you want to create a magical, maybe an arcane looking Punisher, this could do as well. So I guess it would give you an option to create a Punisher that uses sorcery or something. You decide. Or you could use celestial powers or other powers and fake them as if they were sorcery or whatever magic he was using at the time. It wasn't a very popular version of the character, and it pretty much disappeared pretty quick. They went back to the traditional Punisher and forgot to ever mention that it was supposed to be some sort of angel. So today I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys didn't even know that at some point the Punisher came back from the dead and was some sort of angel. So pretty much right after the Angel phase of the Punisher, they pretty much just brought him back with jeans and a T-shirt, and that was the new Punisher at the time, or the latest version of the Punisher at the time. So he was back to being his old greedy self. No more silly costume for him, or so it seemed. So he was pretty much back to wearing jeans, T-shirt, boots, and short gloves. Or sometimes instead of the jeans, they would give him some sort of cargo pants. Sadly, a lot of people who work on superhero comics are a little bit embarrassed to be doing superheroes, so they're always trying to make them a bit more realistic. It happens. But again, the character would pretty much change depending on who the artist was, and even sometimes the same artist from miniseries to miniseries would draw him different. So you could get him in a T-shirt, again in jeans and cargo pants. But the closest they came to pretty much make him put him back in his traditional costume was to have something kind of like his traditional costume, but all black, which is pretty easy to recreate in this Universe Online. You just give him some short gloves. The simple utility belt is something you can use in pretty much all the incarnation. Here I'm using the Stalwart Defender chest, but any slimline will do the trick. The cargo pants will do the trick, and of course the paramilitary boots would work a bit better. This is pretty much their way to make the character more grounded, more realistic, sort of. Which is a bit ironic because after a while they turned him into what was known as Franken-Castle. They pretty much, I don't know, the son of Wolverine cut him apart and they put him back together as some sort of Frankenstein monster. That lasted for a short while. But it was a bit strange to see them trying to go hyper realistic with the character and then go completely off the wall with something like Franken-Castle. I'm not going to recreate the look of Franken-Castle. I don't think we really have what we need in DC Universe Online to be able to do that. But if you Google it, you'll see what the character looked like. Obviously, personally, I'm a big fan of the traditional version of the Punisher. This is how he first appeared in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man originally. Although that's not when I became a fan of the character. I sort of kind of knew the character, but not so much. It's only when I read the 5-issue miniseries by Stephen Grant and Mike Zeck that I truly became a fan of the character. And then later on, Jim Lee on Punisher War Journal had a pretty good run. He did about 18 issues, I think, on the series, the first 18 issues as a penciler. And it was a pretty darn good run of the Punisher. If you ever get the chance to read those comics, I would strongly suggest the first Punisher miniseries and the first 18 or so issues of Punisher War Journal, as they were drawn by Jim Lee at the time. Although he worked on Alpha Flight before that, the Punisher War Journal is where I discovered Jim Lee's artwork, and I became a pretty big fan of his work at that time. So that is pretty much it for our Punisher video. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask so in the comment section down below, and I'll see what I can do about answering your questions. So as always guys, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.